Welcome back to another season of the Lions College Football Podcast. I'm Brett Gibbons with TheLions.com, and this year I am joined by Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings. Perhaps you've seen him on Twitter. Perhaps you've responded to him on Twitter. Hopefully you were nice about it. Not everybody is. But Kelley, thanks for joining us this season. I'm really excited about this. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Brett. I'm excited to be a part of the team here at TheLions.com and on the podcast with you. And yeah, Twitter, folks, it took me a while to learn, but once I got into the Twitter space, it was very apparent, how to interact with people, who wants to engage in good faith, who does not. I'm very open. I'll go back and forth with you in a respectful way if that's what you're into. If you're not, I'll probably hit that mute button. I recently did a mass unmuting, so kind of a fresh slate for everyone coming into 2023. And I actually haven't had to go back and mute anybody yet. So we'll see how long that lasts once the season gets started. But yeah, I'm very open on Twitter, always down to talk college football. And that's why I'm excited to be on the podcast with you.
So that's good to know. So if anybody listening has replied to Kelley about his most deserved rankings and gotten really angry as to why Georgia may be number 2 on the list, because how dare you, sir? We'll try again. He's unmuted you by now. If you're looking for more information on Kelley's ratings, you can go back to either of the 2 episodes we just posted. He went over what those are, what those mean, the most deserving rankings. Those are really cool and exciting. I love those. Go listen to that. This is episode number 3, and today we are talking the MAC. My MAC. Your MAC. Our MAC. We love the MAC here. I went to school at Bowling Green. Kelley, you briefly went to school at Ohio, right? You were there.
I did grad school at Ohio University, and I was a part of a graduate program there where part of what we did, is a sports administration program. So part of what we did, every single home football game, many home men's basketball games, we were working it. So when people talk about MACtion on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night in November, long after the sun has set and likely when the snow or sleet is falling, I'm there. I've been there. I've done that. I've been putting the nets up behind the field goal posts. I've been ushers. I've been in the elevators, taking care of donors in the donor room. You name it. I've done it at Peden Stadium for Ohio University. So Ohio is a special place in my heart. I know Bowling Green is yours, and so we can certainly go back and forth on that in the MAC East.
Yeah, and we will. We will definitely talk the MAC East. We'll talk a lot about Ohio, maybe a little bit of Bowling Green for a spoiler there. No, I'm with you. It's really, really difficult to sell a recruit to come to Bowling Green, Ohio on a Tuesday night when it's 37 degrees and you just gave up 66 points to Toledo on the field. I've been there. It's a real fun time. But hey, let's dive into this. And I wanted to start with just an interesting nugget. I don't believe that this is actionable information, but it's just a fun fact. Every team has made the MAC championship since 2015 except for Eastern Michigan. And I know Eastern Michigan was real bad for a long time, but they've been pretty good recently. Maybe they'll break that streak. But we've also had no repeat division winners since NIU and my Bowling Green Falcons since I was going to school there, 2013 to 2015. That's the last time anybody's repeated in the division, and every team has made it. So this is a very, very low variance, very high parity league. And that's what makes it such appointment television on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, because anything can happen on any given night. And pound for pound, I believe that this is the most interesting group of 5 conference this year. Pound for pound, I think they may have the best quarterback play of any conference this year, and maybe the most interesting quarterback play save for the Pac-12. I think the Pac-12 probably has the best overall quarterback play, but the MAC carries its own weight. Now, I have Toledo in a tier of its own. That hurts me to say very dearly. But what do your numbers say about tiers in the MAC?
Yeah, I'm right there with you with that, Brett. I've got Toledo power rated number 69 nationally, and then there's a significant gap between Toledo and actually my Ohio University Bobcats. I promise there's no bias put in there special for them, but I do have Ohio as the next best team in the MAC, number 91 nationally, and of course they're in the East Division. So for Toledo, their closest competitor by my numbers is actually the team who has not won the division, Eastern Michigan, down at 104. A 53% chance for Toledo to reach Detroit in the MAC championship game. They are the clear favorites out of the West, and overall, there is a separation between Toledo and the others in the MAC by my numbers in the preseason here in 2023.
And what about the East?
Yeah, in the East, I'm looking at a 3-team race, really. Ohio, I mentioned, are the favorite, number 91 nationally. Miami's number 94 nationally. And then I have Buffalo at number 102. But percent chances to reach the conference championship game for these teams, Ohio at 46, Miami at 32, and Buffalo at 19. So, again, sorry about your Bowling Green Falcons. Bowling Green, Kent State, and Akron combined have about a 3% chance. It's really a 3-team race in the East for me, with Ohio as the slight favorites right now.
Well, let's talk about Ohio. I think they're the most interesting team in the MAC. Toledo might be the best. They may be the highest rated. I have about a 3.5 point difference between Toledo and Ohio, and a 3-point difference between Ohio. And let me scroll down to find the next team because it is so close. Curtis Rourke does return for OU, but his status is TBD for the beginning of the year. Reports that I see suggest that he'll play. I think people are handicapping the game like he'll play. The market movement on their game at San Diego State suggests he'll be available for week 0. If not, the backup quarterback Harris is athletic and I think capable, even though they only scored 7 points against Toledo in the MAC championship. That's neither here nor there. They also return the top 2 receivers, who I actually think are a pretty dynamic duo, in Sam Wigluss and Jacoby Jones. Sam Wigluss, for what it's worth, was an Ohio State player, comes down to, and he had a really cool story, and comes down to Ohio, and he's a dominator. I think he's a great player, so I think they have a very good passing attack. 84% of offensive returning production here for Ohio this year. That's the 5th most nationally, including 4 or 5 starting offensive linemen. That's always good to see continuity up front. I actually favor them in every game except Iowa State, which, funny enough, comes at home. They do have 3 one-score projections, and that's kind of tough because, if they go 2-1 or 1-2 in those, it's not unexpected, but it is possible. But and their strength of schedule, 5th easiest nationally. What is your assessment of your Ohio Bobcats?
Yeah, lots to react to there, Brett, and I agree with you on most of it, and we just slightly differ, not to large degrees on some. Last year, that's where I want to start with Ohio. I projected 5.2 regular season wins in the preseason for Ohio. They reached 9 regular season wins, so that 3.8 differential in the positive direction made them the 4th biggest overachievers in all of FBS by my numbers last year. So this is the team that very greatly exceeded expectations last year, comes into this year with more expectations than I had preseason last year, but still not matching that of what their actual win total was last year. I'm projecting 7.5 coming into this year. It's the best offense in the division with a mid-level defense compared to others in the East, but that's okay because Ohio faces the 2nd easiest collection of opposing FBS offenses in the nation. If we looked at every single team schedule and looked at their opponents throughout the schedule, 1 through 12, how good are their offenses, how good are their defenses, and we stacked up, okay, on average, how tough is the offense that you're facing? Ohio has the 2nd easiest average opposing FBS offenses that they're facing this year. So the fact that their defense struggles might not be the end of the world, and this is a good offense for MAC. It's the 4th easiest schedule in the nation by my numbers. I know you said 5th. So very little difference there. You also mentioned, Brett, something that we're a little off on. You said Iowa State's the only game that you currently make Ohio an underdog. I make them an underdog in that game as well, a game that's in Peden Stadium. They got Iowa State coming to Ohio. But I also actually have Ohio as an underdog in week 1 at San Diego State. Not a lot, but 4.5. And then in week 3, they go to Florida Atlantic, and I've got it right now at about 5.5. I also have a pick'em at Buffalo late in the year, coming off a bye for Ohio in that game. So that's the in-conference game that may be most likely to lose for Ohio, but they're going to be favored in most of their games. We differ on a couple there, but not by a lot. So to me, Ohio has the edge. They get Miami at home. I think that's important. The Buffalo game being on the road could be something, but like I said, they're coming off a bye in that one, so presumably they'll have a chance to be prepped for that game. So I like Ohio. It's an easy schedule and a good offense for MAC standards.
Let me correct myself. I do have San Diego State favored in that game. So Ohio is not favored in 2 games. As soon as you said that, I was like, hold on. I can't possibly have them favored on the road in that game. I do not. I did bet them, though, as a preview to our week 0 preview that'll come up here. I like OU. I think they're the real OU, as we call them here. I think that game at Buffalo it's tough. When it comes to the MAC, though, I think there's very few road games where I'm like, yeah, that really makes a difference. Sometimes I won't even take the 1.8 home edge or the 2.1 home edge or whatever you're making it. Sometimes I'll actually nix that because, like, unless you're going up to the Glass Bowl Toledo for a big game where it's going to be packed and rowdy, there's not really many venues that make a huge difference. Now, what does make a huge difference in terms of location in the MAC is the weather. We saw at, Western Michigan last year, they played in like half a foot of snow where I think that was a Bert Emanuel 300-yard game, wasn't it, for Central? What an electric player he is. I did want to plug an article because I will shamelessly plug some of my work here at the Lions. I did an article on conference variance and scoring each one of them. And the MAC actually has the lowest variance. What that means is there's a smaller gap in these teams' ratings than all the conferences in the nation, which means there's higher chances for upsets. And that's, like I said at the top, that's why the MAC is appointment television, because anything could happen because these teams are so razor thin in their power ratings. And to me, that reads as an opportunity to bet long shots. So I wanted to talk about Miami of Ohio. I actually took them 9-1 to win the conference. I think personally, by my numbers and my estimation, it's too long. I'm not saying that they're going to sit here and beat Toledo. I think Toledo sits in a tier of its own. But at 9-1, I thought there was a little bit of value there. Brett Gabbert returns for Miami. He's one of the better quarterbacks. He was on and off hurt last year, so you look at his numbers, you're kind of like, he's not really that great. No, he's good. He was just really hurt last year and missed a whole bunch of games. I have them less than 1 touchdown off of Toledo in their ratings and 1.2 points off of Ohio. By my numbers, they play the 4th easiest schedule nationally. Yours obviously will differ on that by a little bit because you said Ohio is the 4th easiest. And they should, again, field one of the better defenses. The offense definitely needs to improve. I think a lot of that was, though, Brett Gabbert missing the time. They were 106th in points per drive last year. Not great. Here's the problem, though, something that does worry me a bit. They're 127th in going for it on 4th down in neutral situations. And they're 105th in Bill Connolly's 4th down profit metric. Basically, how many points are you gaining or losing on an average game based on your 4th down go rate? And yeah, Miami was 105th nationally. They're ultra conservative. So I do want to see that improved. Hopefully the offense will improve there. But what's your assessment on Miami?
Yeah, Miami. So I've got a 32% chance that they make the conference championship game. I know you have it 9-1 to win, but once you're there, anything can happen in a one-off game in Detroit. So I think Miami, like I said, second best team in the East with that 32% chance. They do have to play at Ohio, which, of course, that's a rivalry game, the Battle of the Bricks. So that could be a tough one. I know we've talked about what's the home field advantage in the MAC, but that could be something. They start the year, it's interesting, they start the year with 3 consecutive road games. Now, it won't matter for conference standings, but at Miami, at UMass, and then at Cincinnati before hosting Delaware State from the FCS. So it's just an interesting scheduling dynamic to start the year for a team that has aspirations of winning the MAC championship. But yeah, I have a 70% chance to win 7+ games. Last year they won 6 in the regular season, so I think their win total this year will exceed that of last year when they underachieved just a little bit by my numbers.
Yeah, and you said that anything can happen once you reach Detroit, and that's true. And I know we look at numbers and definitely would favor Toledo, but Toledo doesn't have a killer's resume in terms of winning this league, and they should. They out-recruit by a mile. Their facilities are better. They have way more talent per pound. They're spending more money on their football program than any other team in the MAC by a sizable gap. And yet, like I said, no team has even repeated as a division champion since 2014 and 15. So if we're taking the anything can happen aspect in Detroit and then piecing together that 9-1, which is a 10% implied win rate, I'm a little comfortable with it. Now, it's not the only long shot that I took, though. Yeah, this is definitely turning into a segment. The Sicko's bet, the Sicko's assessment of the week. It really is now, because this is number 3. I bet Akron to win the MAC East at 14-1. Those are long shot odds to win the division. Now, if Rourke isn't 100% healthy at the beginning of the year, something goes wrong with Ohio, let's say their defense that should be middle of the road regresses or underperforms, they're not that far off the lead. I have them 7 power points behind Buffalo. That's a touchdown. That's a bounce one way or another. I also took over 3.5 wins. They're actually favored twice at home. And then they're about 2 to 2.5 point underdogs in my estimation to Northern Illinois. They're a 1-score underdog at home twice. Like, there's just a lot of toss-ups and actual times that they're favored. I like their quarterback, DJ Irons. I think they have a good receiving core, a good DB core. And they covered 5 of their last 6 games last year and 7 of their last 9. This is a stretch, right?
Brett, yeah, we've reached true sicko. We talked about it the last 2 shows. In the American, we had one in Conference USA. The difference for me on those previous ones is I could kind of get behind them from a numbers standpoint. And for a lot of your over-unders with teams, my numbers have supported the position you've taken. I'm not going to pretend to agree with you on this one. Even at 14-1, I mean, I need a lot longer than 14-1 because my numbers give Akron less than a 1% chance to make the conference championship game or, in these terms, win the MAC East division. I'm looking at this. This is one of the bottom, 3 or 4 teams projected in FBS coming into this year. They don't have a particularly strong offense, which I think you need to pull some upsets. The defense is even worse than the offense. I've got Akron favored in 2 games this year. One of them's against Morgan State from the FCS ranks in week 2, and the other one's in week 10 coming off a bye. They welcome Kent State. I like them by about 1.5 points. Outside of that, yeah, Brad, I'm not seeing this one. I could be surprised. Actually, athletic director at Akron, I know him, Charles Guthrie, used to work in the Horizon League at Green Bay. So I'm wishing them all the best. Nothing against the Zips. Joe Moorhead was a splash hire for sure. That's about as positive as I can be on this one, Brett. It's a less than a 1% chance by my numbers. I don't like it at 14-1 even. I think we're donating money to the local sports book, as you put it in one of the other episodes.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. And maybe the ideal situation here is they come out and surprise and hopefully hit over that 3.5 win threshold, and maybe we can cash out for a profit. Maybe we're just trading stocks here. Yeah, we'll see. If anybody has the intestinal fortitude, as I like to say, to bet this, good luck. We're in it together. But yeah, if you're saying less than 1% chance, not great value by my numbers, because I took them at about 6.7% chance to win the MAC East. Again, just going on low variance, high parity, maybe a team that can exceed expectations. We'll revisit it later. And sadly, we have come around to my Bowling Green State University Falcons, and I say sadly because I bet under 4.5 wins. Now, they offered it at plus money, which is kind of enticing there. They've had tied for the 2nd worst recruiting average the last 5 years. I don't know if public is the right word because I don't have a big enough platform to say I've been public about it, but I don't like the job that Dino Babers did at Bowling Green. He won a ton of games with Dave Clawson's roster and with a stud quarterback in Matt Johnson, who is now the offensive coordinator at Kent State, fun fact. He then left the program in ruins, and they have not been able to recruit since. That last 5 mark is 5 years since Dino had, his roster was kind of turning over. Last year they overperformed because they won twice outright as a double-digit underdog, and then another time as a 6.5 point underdog. To me, that says overperforming. And I'd like to get your numbers on overperforming because you do have your overperformers every year. I favor them in 2 games. Their game at Kent State is a toss-up, which is tough because Kent State was just gutted this offseason. I don't know how much talent they really have this year. Maybe potential in the future, but not this year. And they lost most of their top players to the transfer portal. They return a really good linebacker, Darren Anders. He led the nation in tackles a couple years ago. And I don't really see a whole lot more. Carl Brooks has gone to the NFL. So I took under 4.5 wins at plus money. What do your numbers say about Bowling Green?
Yeah, my numbers agree with you there. They were overachievers last year, winning 1.7 more regular season games than I expected. So modest overachievers. Bowling Green's history is interesting. If you look at their graphic, which is up on my website, you look at the most recent 10 years of their K Ford ratings. It's their 9 at best K Ford rating rank of 97 at best with the exception of 2015, which just sticks out like a sore thumb. They finished that year number 47. So that's the only green one on the 10-year. The rest are pretty dark red, and it's been bleak as of late. I like this 56% chance to win fewer than 5 games. My numbers have them as favorites against Eastern Illinois, Akron, 1-point favorite at Kent State. I know you called that one a pick 'em, a toss-up. It certainly is. And then the other two, if you get those 3, which that's an if, because, Kent State has to pick them at Kent State. But if you get those 3, they'd have to get 2 more for you to lose this one. Ball State at home, I currently make Bowling Green a 1-point underdog. And then at Western Michigan to end the year, I currently make them a field goal underdog. If they somehow get all 5 of those, that's the only path that I could see it happening. It's likely they're going to pick up 1 unexpectedly, because that's what happens in college football, but it's also expected that of the 5 I just named, they'll probably drop 2 of those. So a 56% chance. It's not as high as a percent as some of the other ones that you've put out, with hitting the 60s, which I think is great value, but 56 is over the number you need. And so to me, I think there's math to back this one up. So not the most value of any of the ones you mentioned, but certainly one that my numbers can support.
And you have to take the numbers, and you do kind of have to contextualize them sometimes. This is getting a little bit in a narrative street, but Bowling Green, they're good for once a year winning those upsets, like you said. Maybe they shock Georgia Tech on the road. They beat Minnesota 2 years ago. They could shock Georgia Tech, maybe steal a win at Miami or steal a win at Buffalo. Maybe somebody that's overlooking them, but like you said, they'll lose to Western. They will beat Eastern Illinois by like 2 points because they've lost to FCS teams before. I've been there. It sucks. Or they beat them by 1 point. Last year, they lost to Eastern Kentucky, giving up 58 points in overtime. So, just kind of the nature of this team and kind of reasonable expectations. But we started this podcast with your Ohio Bobcats, and we finished this podcast with my Bowling Green Falcons. So I'd say that is a successful kind of rundown of the MAC. I know we didn't talk about every team. We could have been here for 3 hours if we did that. We'll certainly talk about each team in the MAC at some point coming this season. But thanks everyone for listening. If you have not yet, hop on over to our Discord server. You can join over 4,000 sports betting fans there. Get live updates in the college football channel. You can get bets that I place all season long. I'll be putting those in the Discord. It's a really sharp and active community that's becoming more active because the college football season, I'll say it, is here. It is on our doorstep. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lines YouTube channel for daily sports betting strategy videos just like this one. And comment your thoughts on the MAC below. We all have them. The MAC is one of the best leagues. It's what makes college football great in the heartland of America. Also, subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever they're hosting out there. Go ahead and subscribe to us over there at the Lines. Kelly, before we get out of here, please plug your work for everybody to find.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to be here at thelines.com. You can find me on Twitter at KFordRatings, also on the website, kfordratings.com. Looking forward to continuing on with you on this podcast, Brett, and also getting some writing done on thelines.com. It's going to be a great college football season.
Yes, it surely is. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and listening. I'm Brett Gibbons. That is Kelley Ford, and we'll see you all next time.